Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know, my name's Tammy and I run a little handmade business including sewn and crocheted items and lots more, where I make hair accessories like scrunchies and bows and stuff. I make wraparound towels, I make throw pillows, I make a lot of different items. In today's video, I just thought I would show you how I make my big deluxe satin bows. This is one I've already made and I'm just going to show you how I make them. You can make these a lot of different ways, but I actually like to do mine on the sewing machine, but I've seen them made a lot of ways. This is my way. The pieces of fabric I'm using, I've already pre-cut, but I'll tell you the measurements and stuff. What I did was I just cut a piece of fabric. I cut it 8 inches from selvage to selvage. So I just cut an 8-inch piece from selvage to selvage, and then I just cut what I needed. So my big long bit, I cut a 20-inch piece, so it's 20 by 8, and then I folded it in half, and then from the corner of the fabric, so you'd have it straight from the corner of the fabric, I just measured and I cut 2.5 inches off on an angle so that when it's done, you have your little angled pieces so it's not straight. It looks really cute like that. You could have it straight if you wanted, but I like it like that. Then you have a 10-inch piece, so you have a 10 by 8-inch piece, and you have an 8 by 8-inch piece. And then this piece I've already sewn, but it was 3 inches, so 3 by 8. So then you just fold it in half, sew it, and then I flipped it, and then I've just ironed it out so it's ready to go. I pushed my seam to one side, and then I ironed it out so it's ready for, that's the center piece. So now let's start sewing. Now this bit you can measure or you can do it by eye, but you're gonna fold your piece in half. You can start with whichever piece you like, but I'm going to do my big piece. And now I'm just gonna put it under my presser foot, lay the presser foot at the edge of the fabric, checking that your edges are together, and I'm going to backstitch at the beginning and the end. Backstitch, and then just go down to about there, lift up and flip. So you should be having your presser foot towards the edge of the fabric when you flip it, and that is exactly where I want it to be. And then just go along. Just go towards the center. You could, this is where you could measure it out so you know you're in exactly the right place, but I generally do it by sight now. So go to around the center. And that looks to be about the center. So you're going to backstitch now. And then I'm going to cut, and I'm going to lift my presser foot, and I'm just going to drag that down a bit and leave an opening and put it back down, leaving the same seam allowance. I use my presser foot as a guide for my seam allowance, and then start sewing again and backstitch. That sort of prevents your stitching coming undone a little bit when you're flipping. Now go okay, lift it up and line it up with the presser foot at the edge and go all the way to the end. Backstitch. Now you could leave all that attached, which I do sometimes, but because I'm doing it this way, I'll just show you what I'm doing. So I cut it as I'm going. Now this is your 8-inch piece. So always put it with your good sides together. Because you're going to flip it, so the knife side will be out. Turn. Leave your gap to flip it. Now this is your bigger piece. So the 10-inch it's going to be 10-inch in length. So you put it with it so it's longer, like that. And you're going to sew around exactly as you did the smaller piece. So that is all of the pieces sewn. Now this bit you don't really have to do if you don't want to, but I like to. I just snip just on the corner and a little bit just down on that corner of each piece, just so when you flip it, it'll flip a little bit, it'll sit a little bit nicer and flatter on the corners. Just be careful when you're doing that not to cut your stitches, because then it's going to come undone. And now it's time to flip. There it is. I use crochet hook, just the handle end, not the hook end. So you're just going to get it where you're going to get from your end and then push it. You can use your finger or you can use your crochet hook. Push it through your opening and then pull it through. And if you've left a big enough opening, which be careful to leave a big enough opening because it's not fun trying to flip it when you haven't left a big enough opening. And this is where you use your crochet hook. And I actually did have a metal one. There it is. That's the one I use. Makes it easier with metal and not plastic. This is where you're going to flip, push out your corners. Be careful not to push too hard or you can go right through your seam. So we're going to flip this one. Again, pushing out your corners. Be careful not to push too hard and push through your seam. All done. Now I iron this piece. I have done it both ways. I iron it before I start sewing. I did sew it and then iron it, but I prefer it to iron it first and then sew it, and then I just flatten it out, push it down with my hands so that it looks a little bit nicer and not quite as stiff. So now I'm going to flip my long piece. Okay, this is where I just flatten it out with my hands. Roll out your seams a little bit if you need to. Sometimes you may need to with your crochet hook, just push along your seam. That's pretty good. Okay, seems like we have a little bit of fluff sticking off. Okay, now you've got two options here. I prefer to do it this way, but you can stitch it. So what you would do is just, I would get a matching thread if you're going to stitch it, or as close to as what you can, so it sort of blends in a little bit. But you would stitch just along your opening, back stitching at both ends, and so that it closes it. I used to do that, but I actually prefer to do it this way so it's not seen. I actually just put a little bit of glue in there to keep it closed, because when you get it in the bow completely done, it doesn't come undone, and you can't see it and everything. This is the glue I use, the Hallmark glue. It's clear, it's really good. It doesn't leave as many marks when it's dry. It will leave marks, but if you accidentally get it on, the marks aren't as bad either. So just put it in your opening, dab a little bit of glue out. There we go. Just press it closed. So just do that with all three pieces. Careful not to get glue on my table. I should really have a mat underneath me when I do that so I don't get glue on my table. Okay, all three pieces done. So now you're going to lay your bigger piece of your rectangle, putting your seam piece facing down, and then you put your other piece on top. You can measure this, which I used to, but I just pretty good at eyeing it and maybe using, yep, that's in a good position where I want it. And now you maybe even like push that down a little bit. Now this bit I clip, I just fold this over, I've learnt that's easier, and just fold that over there and that over there, and I just clip it so that, and then I put my other piece on. So I'm going to clip that. But this piece I do measure just so it's even. And I can do it by eye, I'm pretty good at that, but and that's exactly where I want that to be. Now this bit, you're going to clip this on as well. You don't have to, you can just do it, but I find it easier and it stays where I need it to. So now that you've got to clip these on, and again, you don't have to do this bit if you don't want to. You could just do it by hand and not do the stitching bit, and just like do your little pleats up there with a needle and a thread, but I prefer to do it this way. And I'm going to, I actually do, it's probably better to measure this and eye it out. So with that folded in, it's about 7 inches, so in the middle, I'm going to just put a little bit of a mark. I don't measure all of it. I do a lot of it by eye, and sometimes I will just do it all by eye, seeing where, but I want to make sure I'm doing it right. So, yes, that's where going to where, no, yep, that's in the center. Now you're going to stitch this. You don't need to do a back stitch on this. You can if you want to, but this is just to hold it together while you're trying to pull it up into your bow. So now that you've got that all sewn and cut off, you're just going to, you can do this with a needle and thread, but I actually like to do it this way, do it by hand. So just fold that over, fold that up a bit, so that's your second pleat, do that again, and then again. So you can see you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pleats. Now, where is it? I'll just use this. You've got one of these little, you can do this, like I said, with a needle and thread. You could even do this by hand like that and then wrap your needle and thread around it. But I like to do it this way. Get these little girls stretchy rubber bands, hair tie things, and then just, I find it easier to position it after you've got it on, because if you use a needle and thread, especially if you push the needle and thread through the fabric, you can't position it as well. Okay, so I just wrap that about 3 times around, and then you just position it where you want it to go. Position your, that looks good. It's exactly where I want it. That looks good, exactly where I want it. So you want to have these parts at the front so they can be seen like that. Now your next bit is this. So you're going to put this around the centre. Your seam is going to be seen. You're going to put it over, and then you're going to turn it over, and you're going to line it up here so that you've got that like that. You can clip it if you need to, but if you hold it and you get it in the right place so it's flat down and not hanging over at it on either end, then you're going to put it under so you could do this by hand if you wanted to as well, or even just glue it if you wanted to. Make sure your fabric's in the right place, hold it, and then so just back and forth. That's pretty good, I think. And now that's done with the sewing machine. I'm just going to use that for the light. I'm just going to cut my stitches off at the side so that they're not hanging out at all. And now I'm going to cut this excess off without cutting my bow. So that's cut now. Now I'm just going to, this bit is optional as well, you don't need to do that. I have a heat sealer, barbecue lighter, so I can heat seal the ends of like my ribbon bows and stuff. So I'm just going to, I like to heat seal this so it doesn't fray, this bit. Again, that bit is optional, but you don't have to do that if you don't have one, or if you don't, it shouldn't fray too much, but I just like to, just to be safe. Now your next step is you're going to flip that. Just turn it over so that your seam is now not seen. It can be a little bit fiddly. Okay, so that is all flipped, and that's what it looks like. All done. So the next bit now is your clip. So you could even put, if you wanted to, you could put a hair tie under there and just glue it on. Just be careful with your hair ties. If you put too much glue on top of those little elastics, they will break. The glue will break them, so just try and be very careful. But you could put a hair tie on and then wrap around and sew it and do it that way, or glue it, or whatever you want to do. But just use your clip. You're going to take your centerpiece out. Don't worry, you can get that back in. You could also just sew this around the clip if you wanted to, but I just find it easier then it's tighter. Just push your clip in underneath. Again, it can be a little fiddly depending on how tight you've done this part. Just push your clip in underneath. And that's done. You could just leave this bit like this and not glue it, just have your clip on like that, but it just slides around and I don't like it. I like to secure it. So now, again, with my glue, the same glue as before, I put a little bit underneath there, just underneath the clip and in between the fabric and the clip to hold it so that it doesn't, and then just make sure you've got it in position while it's still, and then move your center part. And now I like to do this as well, put it on between the top part of the fabric and the clip as well, so that it's glued on the top part of the clip. Just be careful, if you put too much glue, it might be seen a little bit, although it is better than the white glue being the clear. Push your clip into place, close it. Now you could just do it like that, but I just prefer to even secure it even more. I put a little glue in the top part. I go from either side. You could just do one side even, it'll probably be secure enough, but I like to make sure that everything is secure and it's not going to move. Okay, glue in, and there you go. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. Let me know if you found this video helpful or if you make any of my bows or not, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.